Blood, pain, numbness. That is what you feel as your eyes close to the horror around you. Your brave last stand reaches its boiling point, and you feel nothing but cold. The attack was abrupt, powerful, and in the back of your mind, betrayal sits like a fierce stain. You try to curse out your betrayer's name, but all that comes is blood and bile. With a... In your last moments, as you look around, seeing at the edge of darkness indistinct faces staring sightlessly back at you, blood rushes and merciful oxygen deprivation clouds your mind. The last thought is focused on a face, one that will briefly haunt you, then the fog of organ shutdown turns off the brain for the last time. Silence reigns. Time passes. It is Joppa, on the 12th day of the month of Senu. It has been 567 years since Tinu, or the removal in the modern tongue. The days when the gods removed themselves from our plane. On this warm, late summer day in the heat of the city of Almina, we find a young elven woman studying alone in her small room. B, can you describe your character?
Yeah.
Good job.
Thank you. I like it when people say good job. Do it again. It makes me feel good about myself.
Well done.
Okay. That's why I went to get my iPad so you can get my notes. All right. So obviously she's called Ophelia. I assume you don't want my whole backstory. You want to just know what she looks like.
No, want to know what she looks like, kind of what she's doing right now as she sits in her room.
Well, I would imagine, based on where my character is, she's probably reading. Just, just making some notes and things like that about whatever it is that she's researching. I've been told that they all have purple eyes, and therefore she has purple eyes. She has long brown hair, but it has like I guess an orangey tint to it. Kind of like this at the back of my actual hair, where it's like browny orange. I'm being really precise here. She's got a thin face. She looks kind of like, like when somebody's young, but they look like they've been through some stuff. So their face is like starting to look a little bit haggard. It's been through some stuff. She has relatively long nails, but she doesn't paint them. They're just plain, nails. Her face is an average size. She has quite prominent cheekbones. And she's very pretty. People think that she's very attractive when they see her, despite looking somewhat haggard. But from looking at her, you can kind of tell that she's not had potentially a very easy start to life. She's quite taller than like the average person, and thin. I don't know what else really people would say about her, really.
I guess the other option would be, what are you currently doing in your room right now?
Well, I would imagine she quite enjoys reading books about something specific that she can learn to do. So I would say probably reading about some sort of gardening thing, some sort of plant-related thing, learning about plant species and how she can utilize them to her advantage, something along those lines.
Okay. All right. So you are doing that as you normally do, and eventually, after, let's say, 10 minutes from the time we caught up to you, you hear a knock at the door, and a voice through the door says, "My dear, are you available?"
I would assume I don't already know this voice. I don't recognize it.
You recognize this as a person who is effectively in charge of your group, monastery, whatever you want to call it. It's a woman named Mother Falron.
Okay. Obviously, I'm going to go open the door, but I'm going to very carefully look through the window first.
Okay.
And then carefully open the door because I'm a suspicious person.
Fair enough. You see the top of her head. She's an old dwarf. She's about 4'6". She's stocky. Uh, Looks a bit like a barrel of a woman. Um, Her hair is dark and it's tied in two severe ponytails that hang over her robes. And at her sternum is the symbol of Lehuni. A sun disk, golden and glittering, shines off her red robes, and her robes are fringed with gold along the edges, and there are circles of various colors making their way off of the cloak that she wears. Uh, as you open the door, she says, Ophelia, I've been asked to send a delegate from our temple to a special ceremony being led by the clerics of death and life. Sister Ramelow recommended you.
Okay. All right. Well, I'm not gonna say no because it sounds important, and I have a feeling I don't have a choice.
While she doesn't nod, she does kind of acknowledge that it would be preferable that you go. So
So
she,
I sort of just go, okay, when, where, how, what are the means of this?
we are requiring you to go to Kalixar. Their temples are central to everything that's going on at this point, and from what I understand, everyone is sending a representative, even those that are not necessarily the most welcome are sending representatives.
Okay. I suppose that means I'm going to be playing a lot of getting along with people I don't like kind of thing then.
Possibly. I commend you because your general sense of decorum, I think, will serve you well in this circumstance.
Well, perhaps commend me once I get back. And it's gone well.
Okay. I trust you.
Okay.
She hands you a scroll, which has on it a written, more or less kind of like an introduction that says, this is who this is, and they will be attending on behalf of this temple.
Okay. Thank you.
She nods at you and says, May you continue in the light, daughter.
Yeah, yeah.
The older lady nods, and would you like your door closed?
Yes, please.
And she closes
Family.
the door with a boom and steps out.
Fabulous.
Okay.
I think.
Is there anything else you would like to do before we move along?
I'm probably going to sit down, read the scroll, roll it up, and then continue reading my book.
Okay.
And making notes.
All right. You will note that the meeting is in 4 days' time. And you know that it'll take you a couple of days to get there, so you'll have to make preparations relatively soon.
Yes.
Okay. All right. So with that, we then move to a massive library in the middle of Kalixar. This library is on the level of, like, if you thought of the biggest library you've ever seen, like massive university libraries, or say like like a library in New York City that might be a central library or something like that, where there's like books everywhere. This one dwarfs most of those, and it has scrolls, it has books, it has magical books that have to be tied down for fear that they'll fly away, and all sorts of fun different things like that. And at each floor are these large tables where people either have piles of books or scrolls, and they're reading and working their way through them and trying to figure all sorts of different things out. But at the main floor sits a gentleman who is staring at a piece of parchment which he is currently drawing a map upon. And as he is doing that, an older gentleman walks up to him This man has long, flowing white hair. He's elven in appearance, so he doesn't look as ancient as he really is. He looks like a human in their mid 50s, maybe even low 60s, depending on how you would describe them. But in elven years, that makes him very ancient. And he, or sorry, she, I should correct myself, she walks up and says, Archivist Caden.
As she speaks, he is startled slightly and moves his pen in a way he didn't mean to. He just lays it down with a big sigh.
My apologies. I did not
Yes.
mean to interrupt you.
Interrupt, no. Ruin my map. Maybe a little. Can I help you?
Certainly. I have been asked to send a representative to a meeting at the Temple of Life. And Bidwin's followers have come to me asking that I track down someone who'd be willing to do that. And your name has come up. Your father nominated you specifically. She looked a little puzzled by that. And she says, I understand that he believes you'd be a good match for this particular ceremony.
He's still trying to run my life all the way from Lijiang. He'll start rolling up his map. Where do I have to go?
Just to the temple here in town in the next couple of days. They're having some sort of meeting, which apparently they're assembling all of the various representatives of the gods to meet for some strange reason that we're not completely aware of.
And they want me to represent Leonie.
Yeah, apparently.
It's an odd request, but I suppose I could do that.
I am delighted to hear that. She smiles very wanly and says, I look forward to hearing back from you in a few days. And she pulls a scroll that looks very similar to the one that was given to Bee out from her pouch and adjusts her robes as she hands it to you. She then says, I hope that wisdom greets you fondly.
He'll kind of give her a half bow and say, and you, curator.
Thank you, Archivist. And she nods one more time and then turns and walks away. Caden, can you describe yourself to the audience, please?
Caden looks, for the most part, human. He is in his late 20s, but his hair is stark white. His eyes have no pupils or irises. They're also completely white. Other than that, like I said, he looks pretty human. He's just under 6 feet. He wears simple clothes, and he carries a large stick, walking staff, and he's got a bunch of scroll cases that he carries around on his back, along with his back.
Okay.
And he's constantly has a 5 o'clock shadow, which is black, which is unlike the rest of his hair, which is a little bit odd, but
Can I interrupt and just say, because somebody reminded me from messaging me, my character's a wood elf. I forgot to mention before.
Right. Okay.
For those of you that might want it if you would do it.
That's fair enough.
Yeah, for the audience that might play D&D, my character is a Kalishtar, but nobody knows that because he looks human.
Mm-hmm. So as you are sitting there, probably staring at the scroll for a minute, um, a young man comes up to you and says, "Archivist, are you using all of this table?"
Not anymore.
Oh, thank you. And you see basically what was a pile of books suddenly land on the table, and a young archivist tiefling stares briefly at you and then grabs 4 or 5 or 6 books, plops them down, and starts reading quickly through them and is paying you no more attention.
So the scroll says I have a couple days until this meeting. You said?
Yes, yes.
All right. He will sigh and sit back down where he was sitting and try to fix the damage he did to the map.
Okay. As you look at the map, you will note that at some point the curator had done some mending on this map, and your problem had been erased.
That's something at least. He says out loud.
The young tiefling looks up and says, "What?"
Never mind.
No. Oh, okay. And you see him run back, and you can tell he's muttering about something, and occasionally you hear words coming out. Copper, amber, don't understand. And he's jotting stuff down on his scroll.
Don't mean to be eavesdropping, but perhaps your problem is that copper is a metal and amber is a type of stone?
He sighs, looks up at you, and says, "I am not fully understanding what this crazy person is saying." Mutter about strange, crazy crap. Talking about some sort of opening in the earth and cataclysms and some sort of amber rising from the ground. I don't know. I don't understand it either. It's so confusing. Stupid prophets and their ramblings. I just wish they wouldn't ask me to do this. I'm sorry. My apologies. I shouldn't be lumping this on you.
He'll actually look curiously at him and say, this isn't a personal project. This is something the library asked you to look into.
Yeah, the curator Demos asked me to track down any references to some sort of image or imagery that has to do with violence and disasters and end of days kind of ridiculousness. It's just stupid goose chases listening to weirdo prophets who don't have any link to gods any more than, and they stop themselves from saying we do. But you kind of see it mouthed on his lips, like he starts to say we, but then stops. He says, "It's just ridiculous, but whatever. Again, wild goose chase, but I guess it's what I get funded to research." It's a problem when you take early religion as a straight up study. And he looks at you and goes, "You any good with this kind of stuff?"
Caden will shake his head. I'm afraid not. I'm mostly usually just I'm part of the monastery that defends the library. The only thing I've ever really been good at book-wise is map making. He gestures towards the map he's drawing. They've sent me out from Leijing to update the archive's maps.
I see. So you've traveled.
Very much so.
Have you ever been out to Veilguard?
Would I have? Probably not. That's not on like this big peninsula area, is it?
No, Veilguard's in the middle of the continent,
Yeah.
to the
He'll
west.
he'll shake his head. No, not that far.
Ah,
This is actually the farthest I've been so far.
I see. Okay, that's fair enough. Fair enough. I'm just always curious because I've heard it's a dumpy little fortress out in the middle of nowhere, and there's a lot of elves around. So I was curious if you'd had any interaction, but that's cool. And kind of awkwardly stumbles for anything else to say at this point, and looks down at his books and says, "Well, I should probably get back to this. So, thanks for listening. Appreciate it."
Cater will rolls his eyes, but you can't tell because he has no people. Like his eyes are completely white, so you can't tell.
The white iris is moving on the white background. Yeah.
Yeah.
And he then starts flipping through books again and mutter again, and seas, blood, violence. It's all it's ever about. And he keeps writing it all down. And
Right. Well, I think I'm going to go walk around the city for a bit to, help with the map making. Perhaps I'll see you later. He starts to gather up the maps into the scroll cases.
that's fair. And he's still muttering away, and he looks up and kind of gives you a slight acknowledgement, like, okay. And then goes back, and he's still muttering. Even while you walk away, you can still hear the occasional exclamation about, "Who's that? Why do they keep bringing up Lou? Nobody cares about Lou." And keeps writing it down.
I know a certain town guard who's very
Not this
much
character.
about Lou.
Not this character. So, with that, as you walk out, we then turn a few blocks away. We see on a corner of a temple area, guarding the entrance, is a large minotaur. Webby, please describe your character.
Okay, so there's not really a whole lot to describe with Zakara.
Might want to describe what a minotaur is, just for those who might not be familiar.
We don't call
Yeah.
it that.
All right, a minotaur is just a large, giant bull man. It's the
A
easiest way to
minotaur.
describe it.
Yes, a minotaur for you.
So Zakara, he stands about 8'2". He has like grayish skin and fur. The fur covers his entire body. He has some darker patches, like especially around his eyes, of like a dark gray or almost black fur. His horns are black and adorned with various rings and jewelry. And then his eyes are also pupilless, I guess is the word, and they are sheer gold. They just look like small pools of gold.
Okay, and so you are standing in front of the temple to Danu. Yep. This is a temple made for lovers and romance and childbirth. And the large minotaur standing in front doesn't really blend in with any of these. But occasionally there are young people who are coming up, sometimes hand in hand, sometimes giggling behind various veils and fans, and they walk up and they kind of do that thing which people do to like the guards of London guarding the Queen, where they like stand beside them and try and make faces at you, and you're not under any restriction to act like them, so I don't know what you would do in this occasion, but
So seeing them, and it's mostly, you said it's like mostly couples and stuff.
Yep.
Coming up.
Yep, younger
Um,
couples of various races and types.
I would act a lot like those guards that you would see in England. Like I would just be very stoic and just stern-faced, and I would just try to remain like a statue. But occasionally, when no one's around to notice, like once like the couple walks up and then enters into the temple, um, Zakara would let a small smile kind of just creep across his face until somebody else started to approach.
Eventually, there's a small cadre of girls who are kind of like ogling you, and you can see them kind of talking to each other, and they're sort of like trying to push one forward, and one's like, I don't want to be the one, and they're like, you said you wanted to do it, Zaria, go on. And she's like, oh, all right, fine. And it's a small little gnomish girl, and gnomes are small anyway, but this girl looks like she, would be the equivalent of like a toddler, but she's
So would this be a child gnome?
probably like a young preteen / teenager, yes.
Okay.
And she wanders up and she's like, hello, hello, Mr. Minotaur.
I will just slowly move my look down at the young gnome.
Hi. Is it true that you guys always guard the temples? And you were touched by the gods? Is that true?
He'll let out a small breath and he'll just kind of smile slightly, and he'll even kneel down in front of her.
Mm-hmm.
And he'll just give a small nod. Says, that is what is believed.
Oh, that's cool. So, has there ever been a gnome minotaur? Do you know? Her face blushes like crazy at this stage.
We have had some very small minotaurs.
Really?
Sure.
Are they cute? Do they
Well,
look
I'd like to think all of us minotaurs are cute to some degree.
I mean, yeah, but like tiny and cute, and like you could pick them up and walk around with them and carry them.
How far away is the other gnome that this one was with?
Oh, there's like 4 different little gnome girls, probably about, I want to say 10 feet away, all just enraptured by this entire conversation.
All right. Is there anybody else? Am I the only one guarding the temple currently?
At this entrance, yeah. I'm going to be honest with you. Typically, all you're doing is looking for graffiti.
Right.
Because there is a tendency, so for those of you that may not be aware, there is a tendency for people to graffiti penises all over the area. So there's a general sense of that's good fortune, so they do it, and it's very silly. But anyway.
I'm going to pick her up and put her on my shoulder and start walking her back to her friends.
And all of these girls just like go, oh my gosh!
And then as I set her down, I'm going to say, well, of course, the smaller minotaurs are adorable. All small things are adorable.
Thank you, Mr. Minotaur. They kind of all say together.
Just
You're the
smiles
best.
and nods.
You are going to be, I'm sure the gods will talk to you again very soon. I'm sure you're with Danu if you're guarding this temple.
Well, here's to hoping. And he'll place the small gnome back down on the ground and
she adjusts her little skirt and everything, and then looks up at you. And if there could be a complete sort of enraptured appearance that could be imagined on a small little gnome girl, she's got it, and she's obsessed with you now. And all the girls around are all like, "Oh boy," and they're like, "Thank you, thank you, thank you," and they all sort of start running away laughing.
Yeah, I will just walk back up the temple steps back to the doorway and take my stance back where I was.
Okay. As you do, there is a young lady who is leaning up against the temple wall, not far away from where you are, like within about 5 feet away. And she kind of eases her way over. As you look at her, I would like you to roll me a perception check, the first roll of the game.
Oh man, perception check from the Minotaur. Huh?
Mm-hmm.
7.
Cool. All right. Awesome. I see it's not keeping track of that either. Oh, no, I don't see the 7. Oh, I do if I scroll down. There we go. All right. So, let me... So, that's fine. Okay, cool. Nothing wrong with that. A 7 it is. So, occasionally you kind of feel like you see something sort of in the corner of your eye whenever you're trying to look at this young lady, but not enough to really give you any indication of what. But she has long brown hair. Her eyes are kind of a light green color. And she stands at about, I'd say about 5'6", 5'7", thereabouts. Very thin, probably looks like she'd be like an early 20s, maybe late teens kind of look. And
does it look like she's approaching to go into the temple or just kind of meandering around?
No, just leaning up against the wall, like basically kind of slouched against it, kind of like as if she's just passing the day while she's standing there.
Okay.
And says, "Glorious day to be guarding a wall, huh?"
Well, there are things beyond the wall. It is a temple, after all.
Yeah, Danu. Always pregnant Danu.
Is there something I can help you with, miss?
How lucky do you feel, my good man? Or beast, or whatever would be the right word usage?
I have a fair bit of luck, I feel.
Would you like to play a game? Or are you too busy? I don't want to take you away from your tourist interactions, should you need them.
Is it going to require me to leave?
No. We can just right here on the sidewalk, right out in front. No problem.
I'll indulge you in one game, but I do have to be paying attention to this temple.
Fair. I'm not trying to stop you from doing what you're doing. I just want to make sure that that we deal fairly and everything. Cool. So she sits down, and from a small bag she pulls out an unusually large amount of cups, and then like not a large amount, but three large cups, bigger than the bag. Then she pulls out a ball, which is about the size of like a small golf ball kind of thing.
This is gonna be the shell game.
And she puts it on top of one of the cups. She says, "So here's the game, Minotaur. What I want you to do is pull this ball off this top of this cup."
That's it?
That's it.
Huh. Okay, I will I will quickly try to reach out and snag the ball.
You reach out and roll me an athletics check, please. 15.
15.
Nice. You reach out, you snag it, you're very confident you got it. You look in your hand, there's a golf ball in it. Well, a ball that looks like a golf ball. She looks down and says, "Wow, that was really good." Says, "You're very lucky, aren't you?"
Sometimes.
Hmm. You were lucky in the gladiator pits, as far as I understand.
He kind of straightens up and kind of narrows his eyes at her. I appreciate that. I'd like to think it was some skill involved, not just luck, but
I mean, all combat requires a bit of both, to be fair. Otherwise, why would they pray to Lu? I mean, you could just pray to the god of victory. You don't need to pray to the god of luck, right?
do I know you from somewhere?
I mean, I was around when your people were like created, invented, developed, genetically manipulated. Take your pick. But no, you don't know me. But I've watched you for a while. She smiles. She picks a coin out of her pocket. She flips it at you. Small gold coin.
I'll catch it.
If you look at it, there is an image of a woman with a pair of antlers sticking out and multicolored hair and eyes that glow. But you can't really tell this from the coin, but because you would have seen this image a few times because it was drawn on quite a number of walls over the years. Eyes that are like golden in appearance, and it winks at you.
I wink back at it.
It chuckles to itself, not that you hear it, and looks. If you look up, you'll see the young lady staring at you, fascinated.
What's the coin for? I haven't done anything for you really to earn it, unless it's for capturing that ball off the cup.
Yeah, I mean, it's a reward because, I mean, you completed my game. You won. So now I would like to hire you.
Okay.
Opportunity to make your name for yourself, to be a real go-getter in the world. You know, that kind of thing.
At this point, saying what she has just said, she has piqued Zakara's interest. Says, okay, I am interested. I do have to finish my guard duties, at least for today. I'm not one to just leave mid-job.
Completely understandable. This job only requires you to show up in a couple of days anyway, so it's not really a problem. But you'll need a scroll. Think you can handle that?
Getting a scroll?
No. And she reaches into her robes, pulls out a scroll, and you can see written in crayon, "One Minotaur, my friend, let in, signed me." Hands it to you.
I read it over for a moment, and then I roll it up and I say, okay, seems legit.
She nods and says, "This is why I like you. You don't question these things. Other people, they love to question, they love to demand, they love to pray and ask for everything in the world all the time. They don't understand the basics of anything. You're cool."
Why, thank you. What am I supposed to do with this scroll other than just show up somewhere?
Yeah. Sorry. I should have added that, shouldn't I? Oh my goodness, that's so silly. I need you to show up to a meeting of a bunch of stuffy temple people over at Bidwin's temple. They're going to have a meeting, and I need somebody to be there to sort of represent me, and I don't like doing what they usually do. They just send clerics and bozos that know a lot. I'm not into that kind of stuff. I like people who actually, like, well, they're lucky, for lack of a better word.
Okay. And you want me to represent you? And what's your name?
My name is Amalia. I am the avatar of Lu.
Avatar of Lu.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. John, does that name ring a bell to me?
Amalia wouldn't. Would you like to do a religion check for me?
I sure can.
Okay.
By golly.
By golly, by gum.
Hey, 15, not bad.
Not bad at all. Wow. So you know the name Lu as the god of luck, mischief, of basically pranks and trackers, kind of like the god that everybody prays to when they're down on their luck and they really need this one to come through, man. So
Gotcha.
they basically plays the role of Lady Luck, but Lady Luck is a fickle person. And that's who she is. And that's all you know.
Okay.
You also know she has no temples.
No temples. All right.
No. And as far as you're aware, no clergy.
All right. Well, you've given me the where and the how and the for who. I see no problem with doing this for you.
Oh, one other thing. Can I see your weapon for a moment? Back to the point where she asks for your weapon.
Right. He'll pause for a moment and just kind of like eyeball her, but then very hesitantly unstrap his greatsword and hold it up.
Okay. She looks at it. Kind of see her squint for a minute. And in that second, you see horns come from her head briefly. But they look like antlers, not like tiefling horns. And then they disappear. And she taps your sword, smiles, and says, "May the blessings and the luck that you need come to you." And she turns and says, "Have fun. I'm sure there will never be a problem."
Yeah, he'll just wave back, and not knowing what she did to the sword, he'll just strap it back to his back and then walk back over to the temple doors and stand his guard.
Okay. All right. I mean, it felt normal when you put it back on, so there wasn't anything that you felt anyway.
I will say Zakara seems very unfazed about having potentially just met an avatar of a god. So,
I mean, fair enough. All right.
And then he'll tuck away his scroll and continue his guard.
Cool. All right. So, We now turn to Cat. Cat, do you have a moment for us? Dum 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 dum. Very much a muted situation. All right, so we will carry on. No, I did not do anything, Iris. It's just decided to do this today. It was working perfectly fine earlier. I will edit that out, but just FYI. Okay, so with that, we find a young tabaxi lady who is armored and has a large sword strapped to her back. She stands in a area which is an auditorium. For those of you who aren't aware what a tabaxi is, they are a cat person, or a person that is a cat. They stand like a normal human. They look just like a cat human, not like a human wearing a cat hat ears or something, but actually like legit cat person. And she has armor on her body, and she stands beside a larger individual, a woman who has with her a staff, and on top of the staff is an orb which has a glow about it, and they are staring at what looks to be a portal, and the portal has a creature standing in front of it. And the older woman turns to her companion and says, Aiko, I need you to push this thing back where it came from. And the girl unsheathes her sword and walks forward as this monstrosity starts to scrabble forward. And this creature looks like an insectoid that is probably about 6 foot tall. It makes sort of a chitinous sound as it's moving, but yet still has a very devious look on its face. And all of the people around can kind of see that are still there at this point. See this thing and its kind of alien appearance, and these two people staring in front of it. And we're going to switch to the map. Maybe we'll have good luck with that. Hey, you can see the map. So this is Aiko, and beside her is a cleric, and, or I guess I said this is Aiko, like you guys could see that. There we go. And beside her is a cleric who is from the same temple that she is from. Aiko is a paladin, and she works with her weapon and walks towards this creature, and the creature strikes out trying to hit her. She ducks and in one move brings her blade down upon it and smashes the creature in the head. The creature falls back and gives a howl of as if it was wounded. She then stands forward and says, I banish you. I banish you to the underrealm where you belong. And she puts her sword forward, and at the same time the cleric slams her staff down, and a glow goes out from both of them that combines into a beam which hits this creature, and this creature feels itself being lifted off the ground, and all of a sudden it blinks out from existence, and it's gone. And the cleric turns to her and says, well done. You have achieved much today. I need you to accomplish something else for me, if you would. Aiko looks over, nods, and the cleric says, I need you to attend a meeting. There is a meeting coming up at the House of Bidwin, and I need someone to represent us there, if you would be so kind. Your strength may be needed. The young tabaxi nods, and the cleric hands her the scroll, much like all of the rest have been handed scrolls. And at the bottom is a large engraved stamp which has been placed upon it magically. And she says, use this token to enter the temple. And they both nod to each other, and they both walk back out of the area, back towards the entrance. With that, all is silence. Suddenly, in the shape, reach out. Dark, black, ink clouds. As it does, the others seem to vanish in its wake. Others that were trying to grab at you. They look like they have mouths with no voices as they gape and trying to reach at you in different manners in this swirling, dark, inky smoke. But now, a towering cloud steps before you and then shrinks. And then standing in front of you, yet in the way, feels as if it is almost all around you, is a woman clad all in black. Skin pale, ghostly white. Eyes black and with no iris. A choker around her throat with 3 gems of varying colors. She seems to measure you up. And she says, apparently to no one, are you sure this is what you want? This is the one? At that, another being appears, bringing with her heat and light. A figure of outstanding beauty stands there with warm eyes, her features seemingly flittering between human and elven, dwarven, goblin, gnome, orc. All of these various humanoid creatures flash in that second. But no matter what you see in front of you, all look beautiful to you. So beautiful she almost hurts your eyes. We need this one, sister. The world of Anakutos must survive this, and this is the one who will be the key, along with the others that we are calling to this meeting. The one in black nods. Darkness next to the light is startlingly disconcerting, but it still seems to bring something solid. You hear the Dark Lady say, "Return. Return." Mortal, you are now on borrowed time, and at any point I can snuff out your candle. Beware those that would seek to harm those around you. With those rather harsh words, your eyes blink open for the first time, or at least the second first time. Avalos, can you describe your character?
Sure. I'll start from the top. So Aislud is what you would consider a normal, standard frame human male who has hazel-colored eyes and brown hair. Stands at about 5'11", and just standard. Immediately upon opening his eyes, he reaches for his throat and his stomach, and can feel the cut across it. but not being able to remember why he knows why they're there. And just looks around.
I will say that the message that you were given before you got here, you only hazily remember who gave it to you. But you definitely remember the last words quite clearly. So, with that, you stand up. And looking at you is an entire group of people. They are of various shapes, sizes, representations, and we will bring up the map so you can all see this little crowd of population standing in a sort of a circle, I guess, around you, and it includes everyone that we previously mentioned, plus more than that. And each of them, you will realize, without fully understanding why, represent different gods throughout the land, and all watch on in amazement as you open your eyes and breathe and sit up. And the purple tiefling woman standing to your left reaches down and offers a hand. Rise.
He will look down with the hand, briefly look back up, take it, and slowly move off of, I'm assuming, the table, the slab, whatever.
Yeah, the platform, basically. Yeah, kind of the altar, I guess, would be how I would describe it.
Okay.
You, looking around, you can see there's off at the top of the dais is a golden dragon, which is representative of Lahuni, I think. Sorry. And at the other end, although you can't see it in this map, is each of the other gods kind of standing in statue form, with the exception of Lu and the dark gods. Every other god is represented. You also will note a minotaur standing behind you as the most odd thing you would have seen, as they are not common.
Very interesting.
And for the rest of you, you have just seen all this. Is there anyone want to say or do anything before we move on? Okay, hearing nothing. Anything else, Avalos?
No, none from me.
Okay.
I just slowly start clapping.
Fair. As you were led into the temple, I should make this point, and your crayon scroll takes on a different shape for the person looking at it, and the temple guard there nods in both frustration and dismay, but lets you in. Everybody else has legitimate notes, but this was yeah, typical Lou. Let's just put it that way, is how they respond. The collection of clerics, paladins, and others greet you, and the one standing away walks forward from the other end of the complex, sort of standing in front of the line of statues, and she says, "Everyone else, please move aside." And all of the people in her way kind of, you see them basically give her a sense of obedience that seems surprising, considering these are all people from different walks of life and different temples. And she walks forward and she touches your forehead and says, "You have been one with the gods. That is a great gift."
I guess if you say so.
She nods and says, "I understand things might be a little confusing at the moment. You have been brought back with purpose, as I understand it. The fates have asked us to take part in this great adventure that is to come. And you, along with those that are gathered here, will represent a bridge or a division between disaster or success. Do you take upon you this quest?" She takes what looks to be a liquid and scrubs it across your forehead in a very ritualistic manner.
Given the warning I was given, I don't have much of a choice, do I?
She nods and says, "Marileith is abrupt, shall we say, as my mistress would explain. Her sister is not well known for her politeness." She then pulls a rod from within her pack and hands it to you and says, "But we are not without blessings. Take this, use it well. It will help you."
He reaches out and grabs the rod as she hands it over. And what does this do?
It holds magic that can be accessed for limited duration during the day. If you have something that you want to use in a desperate moment, you can place it within this rod for use later.
I think I remember things like this.
She smiles and says, "Hopefully all your memories will be pleasant ones. But," and she kind of traces your neckline, "likely not everyone."
Furrows his brow and kind of like gives an intense look.
She nods and looks at your face and says, "Be blessed, young soul. If you are able to achieve everything you can, your memory may yet come back to you, and you may yet achieve the things that you wanted to achieve before you were abruptly taken from this world." She stands back at this point, looks at the assembled crowd, and says, "This young individual needs companions that will protect and be a part of the trials to come. Who here will step forward and win fame and..."
While she's still talking and asking people, Zakara steps forward.
She nods and says, "Welcome." Uh, Akio? God, I'm going to massacre her name.
Akiko.
Akiko also steps forward and nods, saying very little at this point.
Oh.
And she looks and says, "Are there any Beatrice?"
Zakara
Oh.
will literally just look at everybody around him.
I just realized I had the wrong screen. There we go. All right. Cool. That's always good. All right. Okay. So, what's that?
Caden will, after there's a long silence, Caden will fold his arms and look at the person in the middle. Where will your travels take you?
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
I have no clue. He turns to the woman who has done all the speaking so far.
And the head of the Temple of Bidwin steps forward and says, "We have only small clues, but there is something that is being threatened, something that is coming, and all of the temples fear it. And the avatars have come to make us known and have commanded us to bring this individual back to life, specifically, which has never been done before. So whatever it is quite large and terrifying."
He kind of shrugs. I am just a simple man. I care not for the whim and will of the gods. I have been tasked to make maps, and if your travels will take you around the countryside, it is easier to travel as a group than as an individual. I will travel with you as long as I still have maps to make, but then I am returning home.
The leader nods at that, and she then watches the rest of the group to see if anybody else volunteers, and then she walks over to Ophelia? Ophelia, yay, I did it. And says, "Milady,
Hello.
as I understand it, your temple has a great deal to do with this particular matter. And while you yourself may not be aware, they volunteered you for this role."
I was asked to come. I came. That's all I really knew.
She says, "May I speak with you bluntly?"
I suppose.
And she walks right up to you and in a hushed tone says to you, and Webby, if you want to do a perception check to see if you hear this, because you're right beside
I was gonna
her.
say, I was gonna say, as she like gets close to like hush and to whisper, Zakara will start leaning down and getting closer, not
Yeah.
understanding personal boundaries.
Space. Yeah, no. That's fair. And she says, "There are writings from seers, from prophets, from oracles across our entire continent, elven, human, and everything else in between, And all of them say the same thing. Destruction is coming. Fire will rain. All will be destroyed. And only Amber will live.
Okay.
We need your help. Bluntly.
Okay.
I
Sure.
plead with you to help us.
I'll help.
She
Don't go on your hands and knees. I'll just help.
She acknowledges this and almost looks appreciative. And smiles at you as if it's been a very long time of struggle and strife for her. And she says, "Thank you."
I'll just do like an awkward, like, kind of smile, like a kind of looking at you a bit weirdly, but whatever.
She says, "I understand. Hopefully we can see these things out quickly, and you may return to your studies.
What
But
did she
either
do
which
that I
way."
actually-
Oh, she's in a temple. She knows. She says, "However and whatever you study, I do not know. But we all study in the light of our God. Except some of us are a little different." And she looks pointedly at Zakar. There's Zakara.
You're welcome. He whispers.
You actually see her nod at that. Says, "As strange as it might seem, there is some comfort in having your goddess with us." And she then turns and says, "Settle your affairs in the city as soon as possible. For those of you who have been tasked, will join me and we will discuss what the next steps are. Until then, we will speak tomorrow." She looks back at Islud and says, "You are welcome to stay at the temple. We have space for you. If you prefer somewhere else, we can find the coin to cover wherever you would like to stay."
No, here will be fine. Thank you.
She nods and turns to one of her younger clerics and says, "Find this young man some food, please. Hurry." And the young person nods and says, Please follow me." And as they do that, we will take a break. If you'd like to subscribe to our channel, please do so here. If you'd like to see what we've done in the past, please check it out up here. And if you'd like to check out all of our content, you can do so at distractionsmedia.com.